First of all, there are no shoulds in the beard growing world. If you want your mustache to cover your upper lip, that's absolutely no problem, and no one should have a say in that other than you. But there are a few things about how the beard sort of touches and interacts with your lips that can sort of mold and dictate how you are desiring your mustache to look versus just how practical it is for the daily life. Is that how you say it? The daily life? But in this video, we're going to go through some of the reasons why people choose certain lengths of their mustache, and also what I think I want my mustache to do and how I want it to look. But ultimately, you know, you've got really thin mustaches where it's trimmed up above the top lip and it's generally thinned out with clippers as well. Then you've got mustaches that are a little bit fuller and sit on the top line of the lip, and I used to do that when my beard was a little bit shorter, and I'll tell you why later on in the video. But now I like to trim my mustache up so that when I close my mouth, you can only see my bottom lip, and so I trim it to where my lips touch, and that's just a preference, but I'll explain why later. So let's get into it. If this video is helpful, please remember to give it a thumbs up and a like. Hit that button, smash it, some people say. And also, this video is based on an article on beardgrowingpro.com, so go check it out. I'll put a link in the description, and it's full of a lot more information, and I think it will be very useful for you to go check that out afterwards. Okay, where your mustache sort of ends is completely up to you, but I like to think of it in terms of how it supports the rest of the beard growth and how it balances it out. So my current mustache is trimmed to where my lips touch, and in the past, my mustache used to be up above my top lip. Now go check out my really early videos from about a year ago, where you can see that you can kind of see my entire mouth, and some people said that it gives them I think it was the Hey Orange or Hello Orange vibes, which I kind of completely get. So I have slowly allowed my mustache to get longer as my beard's grown out. I like having a nice big thick and full mustache to support the much longer beard that I'm sporting at the moment than I did a year ago. So I think that my mustache, what I want to do is make sure that the top line of hairs actually are long enough to completely sort of encase the hairs underneath it. Now, when you're growing out a mustache or a beard, one of the most difficult and challenging things is when you start feeling those hairs tickle on your lip, and it can be incredibly distracting. So I think that's why a lot of people in the early stages of beard growth, not only do they not need a big mustache to support the growth and balance the beard out, or the sort of facial hair area out, but also it's just a little bit annoying. So some of the first areas for me are right in the corner here, so I trim those up, and then, you know, by default the rest of the mustache gets shorter, and so those are the areas where I think it can irritate you the most, and that ultimately I think dictates a lot of people's beard length and mustache length, is really the practicalities of sporting different lengths. So let's have a look at some of the ways that people don't want a super long mustache that covers their entire lips, because it can be a little bit annoying for a whole range of reasons. As my mustache has been getting longer, one of the most annoying things about having a long mustache that covers part or all of your lips is actually just eating. Like, putting food into your mouth means that, you know, it's always coming into contact with hairs as it's going into your mouth, and you do have to kind of adopt this weird eating style where you kind of open up way more than the rest of the people at the table who don't have beards. One of my friends laughed at me once because I had this really nice bit of cheesy garlic bread, and instead of eating it like a normal person without a beard, I turned it on its side, squished it, and put it all in my mouth, because I knew that the moment I tried to put it in my mouth this way, I would end up just scraping all of the deliciousness into my mustache at the time. So you do kind of have to adopt a different way of eating some things, and I always sort of make sure there's some napkins and stuff around for me to clean myself up along the way. But that is one of the reasons why people don't want long mustaches, because it can just sort of like get in your mouth and affect eating. Okay, another reason why some people don't want their mustache to sort of completely cover their top lip or any of their lips is because of kissing. Now, kissing is a completely different ball game when, if you're lucky, because the hairs touch your top lip and it kind of just creates a little curtain that is impenetrable to other lips coming in. And also some people, you know, just don't like kissing hair. Like when you mush your face up against someone else, there's no doubt that these mustache hairs are going to get in their sort of mouth, and, you know, not everyone loves that. And it really comes down to keeping it clean and keeping it sort of smelling nice. So getting a nice beard balm or a nice beard oil that you put in your mustache just to keep it smelling nice. Ask your partner, if you've got one, about what their favorite smell is, and I tend to think that's always a better option than choosing one you like, because, you know, you want them to get close and you want them to enjoy the experience. But I actually did a post question and quiz on the YouTube channel, and I asked people what people thought about kissing after a beard, and I'm just going to go get those results right now. Okay, the results are in, and 24% of people think kissing with a beard is better, 40% of people think that it's actually worse, and about 36% of people think there's no difference. So most people think it's worse or no different, and then a smaller percentage, quarter of people, think that it's a little bit better. And my experience is that really it's a little bit worse, if I'm going to be honest, just because really the only bit for kissing that's open, if you've got a longer mustache and your mustache covers your upper lip, is your bottom lip. And that can be very limiting when you're going in for a good old-fashioned snog. I've talked about this before on the channel, but irritation is one of the biggest things that stops people from growing a decent-sized beard. And in the early stages, the lip area is one of the places where you start feeling that irritation, the hair touching it. And I think that is because the hairs here don't have very long to grow before they're touching the corners of your mouth. And I know that I've got this one hair over here in the early stages. I would just always lick it. Like I'd be like, and my girlfriend would tell me off, and I'd always be licking it. And I think now at the moment, even though my hair is relatively well trimmed up, I'm happy with the length, you kind of have to get used to the fact that there's something tickling at your lips all the time. And so, yeah, that's one thing about it. And I think as you're growing, it's one of the earliest things that you notice. And so people think, well, if it's tickly here, then it's going to be tickly everywhere else. And that's not necessarily the case. I think if you just trim up the ends here and let it grow out a little bit, you can get it to cover your top lip and even more without too much irritation or kind of constant awareness that you have something tickling away at your lips. And I also developed a very embarrassing habit, which I'll talk about now. Another reason why I didn't want a particularly long mustache, like a fancy mustache, is because I just can't help myself from touching it with my mouth and my tongue and my bottom lip. So one thing I always catch myself doing, I think if I think that no one's looking, but people are looking, I kind of look a bit strange when I'm like this. I'm kind of like touching it with my bottom lip, and then I get my tongue out and I like twiddle with the hairs, and my girlfriend's always like, stop doing that with your mouth because it looks weird, and I'm always licking the hairs and it is kind of gross. Another thing I think I do, which is a bit gross, is that if I take a drink of water, sometimes the water gets stuck in the mustache and I push down on the mustache with my finger into my mouth over the upper lip, and I suck out the water, and I forget that I'm in public. And some people go, why is that guy siphoning water from his beard? That's a bit gross. So that's why a lot of people don't want their mustache growing over their top lip, is because you can pick up these very strange habits, and if it's short, you don't have to deal with those. One of the reasons you may want your mustache to cover your top lip is if you're on your way to a fancy mustache. Now, I am very jealous of all of the people that can grow incredibly fancy mustaches. I've never been a fan of the ones that kind of wax up all the time, but having that option I think would be awesome. The problem is you do have to allow your mustache to grow to the point where these middle bits do have enough length that they can be waxed to the side, and then you grow the corners so they kind of come up. I've got a little bit of length there, but nothing crazy, and that's because I just like the way it blends into the beard here. But yeah, that is a perfectly reasonable reason to have a lot of hair on your top lip, is because you do have to then sort of put up with the intermediate stages where it's not quite long enough to wax to the side, but it is kind of gross and a bit longer and it gets in your mouth a lot more. But then after a certain point, you are able to get the mustache wax and wax it to the side. So it is part of the process, and if you're wanting a fancy mustache, then definitely you just have to put up with the fact that your mustache will always be over your top lip and probably even longer, and will cover up your mouth area completely. So then every day you have to wax it out of the way, but they do look really cool. So there we have it. Should your mustache cover your upper lip? Well, it's completely up to you. Remember, there are no shoulds in the beard growing world. Make sure you do what's best for you. And if you've got anything to add to this video, please let me know in the comments and share your knowledge with the rest of my audience. So thank you so much, and I shall see you in the next video.